This day is our day. Its beauty and its promise, its weight of sorrow and disappointment, the brightness of its opportunity for doing and achieving, of its opportunity for the deepening of love and understanding. This day is ours, even as we make it ours, by the readiness and warmth of our appreciations, for from it we shall receive according to the measure of our giving. Let our giving then be of ourselves and from the heart, and may there be laughter on this day, and if there be tears, then generous tears. This is another day, and it is ours. Whoever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to accompany us.
Are there any children who would like to come forward for the message for all ages? Fortunately, it's good for all ages today. Yes? No? Look at that, children. Fabulous. Woo! Thank you. This is great. Well, I have questions that are good for all ages, fortunately. And a good thing you're all comfortable, because look how many books I brought. You can each hold one up. Would you like to hold that one? And there are more. So I went through my daughters in my library this past few days and picked out all my favorite gardening books. And it's no wonder that in my family, gardening is in our DNA. So my grandfather had a PhD in horticulture, and my aunt was a certified master gardener. My mother and my grandmother gardened passionately, and my daughter has a degree in urban forestry. And I taught her to climb trees at an early age, so we were in the garden all the time. And these are some of our favorite books. So we started with The Tale of Peter Rabbit when she was very little, and The Very Hungry Caterpillar. This is a tiny version by Eric Carle. And one of my all-time favorites was The Lady and the Spider. It's a wonderful story about a spider that's living in a cabbage, and the cabbage gets harvested, or a lettuce, maybe it's a lettuce, gets harvested for the gardener lady's lunch, and the spider ends up in the sink and nearly drowns, and she sees him in the nick of time and rescues him and takes him outdoors and puts him on another head of lettuce, and he's happy as can be in his little valley of green. And this has to be my all-time favorite book, really, almost ever, The Secret Garden. So if you don't know it, by Frances Hodgson Burnett, I highly recommend it. It's wonderful. And there are many movies that have been made about it also, or with that story. And then why don't each of you tell me what books you have? So, starting with Jasmine. Oh, this is called Melee and the Firewoman. And it's about a young girl who makes a very special white ginger lei on the island of Hawaii for a contest, and wraps it in tea leaves, tea leaves, and it's a lovely story about the fire goddess. And this one is called Miss Rumphius. This is a fabulous story, sort of I think it's Maine or New England, and she casts these, why can't I think of the name of this flower? Lupin, thank you. Seeds everywhere, and the entire countryside blooms with lupin in pink, blue, and white. And it's really a cute story, with everybody enjoying all of that at the end. So that's that one. This one is Linnea in Monet's garden. It turned out I have a house guest with me right now, and she took one look and said, "That was my favorite book when I was little." And then the one you have is the honeybee and the robber, about a bear who robs the honey from the hive. I like bees particularly well in my garden. And this one is called Rainforest Secrets. And it's not only about the rainforest, but all kinds of forests and what parts of the forest do, the canopy and the mid-story and the undergrowth and all of that, and how fragile that whole environment is. So now I just have, instead of reading all these books to you today, which I'm sure you would love to hear, I have questions for the children and the young at heart, and those of us who enjoy gardening at any age. So, starting with the children, have you ever planted a garden? What did you plant in your garden?
Flowers.
Flowers? Tomatoes?
Onions.
Onions. Green onions or big fat onions?
Green.
Green onions, yummy in a salad. And what kind of flowers did you plant?
Beautiful one.
Beautiful ones. This is my approach, exactly. I plant for color year-round. And snapdragons. Yeah, when you pinch them, they like a little biting thing. Very cute.
Well, I have two gardens with plants.
Two
gardens.
Two gardens. Wow, are you rich to have two gardens? What a wonderful.
And stuff like a thing for growing food.
To grow food? See, that's so important now, isn't it? That we grow our own food.
It's kind of an odd thing.
Odd?
It's an odd thing.
Old? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. I go to all sides.
Well, I have some more questions that you might be able to answer for me. Have you ever grown anything from seed? Yes?
I have.
And what did you do? How did you go about gardening that seed to make it grow?
How to garden.
You know how to garden. Well, maybe some people here don't, so let's help them.
I have in my backpack. Firework in my backpack.
I'm glad to hear that. But let's go on with the gardening. So what do you do with the seed if you want to make it grow into a plant that will either be a flower or food or both? What do you?
Water.
Yes, so you put the seed out where? In the dirt. You couldn't just lay it on your back patio and water it. It wouldn't work. You have to put it in soil. Would you add anything to the soil before you start to water it or after you water it? Fertilizer. And would that be natural fertilizer as opposed to chemical? A leading question here. There are many wonderful things you can put that are natural. Fish emulsion and kelp and worm castings, and all those kinds of things that help your plants grow. And then what does it need? If you put it in your garage and it's dark in there, will it grow? No. Needs, unless it's a mushroom, which is, it's, I think, technically a fungus. I think of mushrooms as plants, but they're fungi. So it needs a grandfather's son to grow, or lights. So what do you like about gardening? What does it give you? What do you get back from it? What do you get out of it?
Rewarding. You get to make your own, either beautiful flowers or your own food.
It's rewarding because you get beautiful flowers or your own food, right? Is it nice just to be playing in the dirt sometimes? Is that rewarding? Did you make mud pies when you were some age? Like I did? And so I used to feel guilty about growing many, many flowers in my garden because I like bright colored flowers in my garden year-round, which is possible in this Southern California climate. Until I realized that I was growing those flowers not only for me and the beauty to look at, but for what kind of creatures might be coming into my garden that would be attracted to flowers. What do you think? Caterpillars, butterflies, hummingbirds, bees, worms. Yeah. Birds. Did we said birds? All kinds of birds like the plants in our garden. And other things come into our garden that we might not be as fond of, like skunks and raccoons and great blue herons. Yes, rabbits eat the lettuce and gophers dig up from below, but how can we coexist with the creatures that we think we don't want and the weeds we think we don't want? What are weeds? Unwanted guests, but really if we lived in nature, they would all be there, especially if they were native plants to our region, right? Yeah. So I've learned to invite the pests to exist in the world, but please go somewhere else. And it kind of works. And then there are good insects, right? Like, what's a good insect to have in your garden that because it eats things you don't want? What eats aphids? Ladybugs. And spiders, yes. Spiders are a wonderful thing to have in your garden. So have any of you heard of the Backyard Habitat Wildlife Certification Program? No? Oh, very fun. It's sponsored by the National Wildlife Federation. So if you just look up backyard habitat, Google that up, you'll begin to get to the place where it tells you how to certify your back garden or any part of your garden. Whether it is 20 acres or a balcony, you can have a certified wildlife habitat. And so all that you have to provide is food for wildlife, which would be things you grow, or it could be supplemented by seed, like bird seed, water, and for birds that's easy, bird baths or some kind of a basin. But what do butterflies? Does anyone know what a butterfly needs for water?
Milkweed.
Oh, they eat the milkweed and they build their cocoons on the milkweed, but they need water too. They need what's called a puddle or a puddling place of water. So a little flat, shallow bit of water, just like it would be in nature, it would be an actual puddle. And a place to raise their young. Oh, and cover. They need a place to hide from predators. So where they hide from predators might be the same as where they raise their young safely. So I just have a couple more questions. Do you talk to your plants? No? Do you play music to your plants? Apparently they've done scientific studies and plants respond favorably to classical music. Scott? They don't like rock music for some reason. They apparently like more soothing music. So they are still researching how plants hear. They think it has something to do with vibrations, cellular vibrations. So I'm terribly interested in that whole thing. And just a last question about gardening. Do you think that your garden just grows without you tending it or working in it, or does it take effort? Takes effort. Do you think that you grow from a child to a grown-up just automatically, or do you need things to grow up?
You need lots of things.
What do you need?
Guidance.
Guidance.
And
Nurturing. Clothes.
Yeah.
Water.
Sunlight.
Love. Food. Touch. Caring. I think we, just like gardens, we need all of those things to thrive, don't we? So thank you for bearing with me in all my silly garden questions. Abundance. Our giving reflects a belief that our gifts will be strengthened by being shared. Giving and receiving allows us to be in balance and in harmony. Unless you write pledge on your check, half of our morning's offering today will be given to World Dance Santa Barbara, who are sending 12 representatives from Santa Barbara to take donations to Rwanda this month, including our own Holly Cook. I don't think Holly's here. Barb Finch is a member of World Dance also, although she's not going to Rwanda. Holly tells us that our Rwandan trip will give us the chance to meet with several communities that we are committed to helping. Our first visit will be with the Never Again Fellowship, which is an extraordinary cooperative composed of 300 households from the 3 previously warring Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa ethnic groups who have vowed never again to genocide. In the last year, World Dance has helped this cooperative community to become healthier and more self-sufficient by donating various items, including 2 pregnant cows, 185 goats, 125 mattresses, and school fees for 39 children. You may be interested in learning more or in donating to World Dance through their website, www.worlddancesantarbarbara.
Bob is home from the hospital and from his visit with the nursing home. He came home yesterday, and we're very happy about that. Beginning a new time now of dealing with some of the health issues at home. So I am very happy about that. I want to give thanks for all of these living joys and sorrows. We are thankful that they may now become part of all of our lives. We share this. And we never cease to remember and to be glad that out of all the world, we can share our lives with each other. Let us pause for a moment and quietly, reverently consider these things. These words from the great poet James Broughton, called The Gardener of Eden. I am the old dreamer who never sleeps. I am timekeeper of the timeless dance. I preserve the long rhythms of the earth and fertilize the rounds of desire. In my evergreen arboretum, I raise flowering hopes for the world. I plant seeds of perennial affection and wait for their passionate bloom. Would you welcome that sight if you saw it? Revalue the view you may have lost? Could you wake to the innocent morning and follow the wrists of your heart? Every day, I grow a dream in my garden, where the beds are laid out for love. Will you come to embrace it and join with me in the joy of the dance. Amen. May our meditations then embrace one another, and may our prayers be prayers for one another. I come to garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the joy I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me is falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me, and he with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, has ever known. Over the years, people have asked me over and over again what I do when I'm not doing ministry. Especially, how do I get away from the intensity of what can be ministry? How do I retreat from that? And I think of other people who do this kind of work, namely Jesus, who used to retreat to the desert sometime for 40 days. I've asked my colleagues about this and have received a plethora of ideas of what to do, all the way from visiting a retreat center set up for people to go on retreat. And some people like to go fishing instead. And one minister friend of mine loves to skateboard. For some years in Seattle, I used to escape to a membership campground way up in the Cascades, deep in the woods, in the old growth forests of the Pacific Northwest. But even there, I ended up doing my very favorite off-time activity, which, as you surely know, is doing crossword puzzles. And I bought books and books of puzzles, cut out the daily ones from the newspaper and stacked them up and put the date on them and kept in order of them. I even tried a little bit of online crossword puzzles, and my life was complete. And I think that Kristen, is Kristen here? You know what I'm talking about.
I'm down to one, so we better start sharing.
So I had all these cut out and I gave them to Kristen because I have changed. My life has changed recently. Since we now live in a garden paradise here in California, I've found a new pastime, and now I am a gardener. My puzzles are gathering dust and turning yellow in the California sun, but I'll bring them to you anyway. And I'm now much more interested in the nature of nature, in the glory of the earth, and in the power of the flower. I want to get out into the garden and start digging and plunging my hands down into good old Mother Earth and feeling the energy of life itself. And it's a thrilling experience for those of you who know about that. And I always hear that song that we're going to sing later, Earth was given as a garden, and it rolls over and over in my mind and in my soul, and it's like, this is what we're supposed to do. And when that great fireball appears in the heavens, as it so very rarely did in Seattle, it is a signal to begin. It is an alarm clock waking us up to do our duty, which is to get down on our knees and become one with the earth itself. As the minister of this congregation, this is an imperative which moves me. For these natural impulses teach me and encourage me to do the work of the church, which is very much like gardening. Any of you who know or who are true gardeners know that what you do in relation to the earth is a very spiritual experience. Yes, gardening is a metaphor, a very apt one. And even though it's distracting, I asked Marty to put up some pictures from my own backyard, right here in Winchester Canyon, over on the west end of Goleta. So they're just going to kind of roll through, and just remember that that entire area was blank when we moved there last July. And so everything that is planted there has been planted since we've been there. And so you can look at those and not pay any attention to the sermon, and that's fine. That was a complaint that we had about the screens. Well, we can't pay attention enough. And so you're going to multitask in this, or not, whatever you want. All the elements of gardening apply here. You wait patiently through the winter months where you're resting and planning and dreaming until the signal announces that it's time to begin, and then you go out into nature, the real world, you survey the scene, you inspect the plot of ground which has been given to you as a garden, and you know that the time is right to begin digging into the earth, and you prepare the soil. You cultivate the soil. You open it up and awaken it from its own slumber, and you become partners with the earth. Partners with the earth, collaborating on how together you and the ground itself will make things grow. That's exciting. That's biblical stuff, I think. And you imagine the beauteous outcome, way down the lines, maybe months away, having the greatest faith that all of your work will come to fruition. Yes, you have faith in the results of your efforts. You really believe, either because of your past experience or perhaps because of your great expectations, your great hope for the future, your great hope that the future will be bright and beautiful and full of flower power. So you are engaged in a faith event. If you've ever said, I don't believe in faith, you're wrong, because actually this is the kind of faith we're talking about. You believe. Some years ago, I did a sermon called The Congregation as Seminary. And the idea was that the congregation of faith, and there's that word again, is very much like a seminary, figuratively and literally. We are training ministers in the seminary here, for each of you has something to do that is really you, your inner soul, your calling. And though that calling may not actually be explicitly oriented to the church, whatever it is, there is a beautiful application of its possibilities here. The congregation is like a seminary. Now, I've been to seminary, to Star King School. Star King is up on Holy Hill, up in Berkeley. And the reason it's called Holy Hill is that there are 10 seminaries up there. And every day, those 10 seminaries have students that sit around and think about God, whatever that means in their lives. Star King is a school for the ministry, and that's what they do there. They think about ministry and what that may mean for their lives. It is in this sense, I think, that the congregation is like that, is like a seminary. As the spiritual lives are cultivated and nurtured, we finally come to the question of ministry and what that may mean in our individual lives and in the lives of the community. I've mentioned James Hillman to you before, a remarkable book he wrote called The Soul's Code, and what he called the acorn theory. It claims that each life is formed by its unique inner image, just like an acorn, an image that is the essence of your life and which calls it to a unique destiny. You cannot put an acorn in the ground and expect a tulip to come up out of that. You put an acorn in the ground, and what does come up? If anything, it's going to be an oak tree. So this idea of putting things into the ground which have their essence and then have them grow into what they are and what they need to be. Elizabeth Peabody in the 19th century was a great Unitarian. She was not a minister, and she worked in the school system, and she created what she called a kindergarten. And it was designed to be a garden for children. Did you know that? That was started by a Unitarian, Elizabeth Peabody. Did you know the etymological root of the word seminary? From Latin words meaning seed bed or nursery, or the place of the seeds, is the seminary. Related words include seminarium or seminar, a group of advanced students studying under a professor, with each doing original research and all exchanging the results to reports and discussions, but each individual does what each individual needs to do to fulfill that person's destiny. And then there's the word semen, which is part of the word seminary. Semen means seed, and to disseminate is to spread abroad, as to sow seeds and disperse the seeds. And even the word season comes from there, because season is the time to sow. So let's talk about gardening for a minute here. And when I first thought about this some years ago, the symbolism of gardening really kind of jumped out at me. But here's what I went and tried to find a book about that, of the spirituality of gardening. And there are no books about that. Although I did find one called Why We Garden, Cultivating a Sense of Place by Jim Noman. And of course, these are all metaphors here. He begins by noting that gardening seems to meet a basic human need, perhaps even biological in nature. He noticed that there may be at least 7 million gardens in the United States. And of course, there are all kinds of gardens, all shapes, all purposes, all providing different levels of difficulty and expertise. But underneath this desire, Noman says something very interesting. He says, people turn to gardening to create a far-off, half-remembered bit of paradise. And the synonym for paradise is the Garden of Eden. And we're longing for that. Within this imperfect world, we're looking for that perfect place. That place where everything bloomed and everything was beautiful and everything was fragrant and everything was full of beauty. We want to recreate that Eden, maybe in our own backyards. Imagine that. He's very interested in that idea of our own backyards, because he says that's where we develop a sense of place, a sense of place. We develop this sense, and we're not born with it. A sense of place evolves as we live, experience, grow, touch, and perhaps taste the soil to learn to predict the weather, to garden. It begins to evolve when a person starts to receive him or herself participating with the natural processes of the place. So we are complicit with nature when we're gardening. We are complicit with local nature, and in that sense also provides an ethic, that is a way of living, a way of doing things. It signifies a respectful, cooperative, and occasionally compliant relationship with the landscape we inhabit. This is ministry. And I think of the way we do ministry here in the church and how it is like gardening. The old way of gardening, and some people still think this, especially big corporations, the old way of gardening is that we try to dominate the earth. And a new form of gardening is to participate with the earth, perhaps even as living beings in the earth, and that the soil is not the medium, but it is an ally. And the garden becomes the guide for us and a mentor for us in our struggle to recreate or reconnect with the earth. We redefine gardening not as control, and any of you who've ever done gardening know that you only have a certain amount of control on what's going to happen in there. You can do all the nurturing, and the nurturing is so important in this, but there's some amazing life that maketh all things new. Nurturing brings us to bear in a different kind of relationship with people, so that plants become collaborators and they're becoming neighbors, and gardeners no longer force feed them to grow, no longer rip them out of the ground without a second thought. In chapter 1, the author decries the role of the church in all of this. Our churches, he says, do not seem very interested in resurrecting the deep and ancient well of religious ceremony that connects gardening to the enrichment of the soil and of the soul. Yes, the ritual observance of planting and the harvest resides at the roots of all Western religions. Churches and synagogues no longer know how to articulate the deep connection between the gardener's pulse and the pulse of the earth. In her book called Refuge, Terry Tempest Williams quotes a conversation with a woman from Kenya. My people believe that you are close to the earth when you are close to the people. When an African woman nurtures in the soil, it will eventually feed her family. Likewise, when she nurtures in her relationships, will eventually nurture her community. It is a matter of living the circle, because we have forgotten our kinship with the land and our kinship with each other, and has become pale. And then Jeanette Armstrong, who is a representative of the Okanagan people up in eastern Washington, said, the way we talk about ourselves as Okanagan people is difficult to replicate in English. Our word for people, for humanity, is difficult to say without talking about some connection to the land. The Okanagan word for ourselves means the ones who dream and land together. It means that we are part of the land. We are part of the dream of the land. We are torn from the land. And before anything else, we are the living, dreaming earth pieces. What a definition for humanity. Living, dreaming earth pieces. And so we go back to the beginning. When you set out to plant a garden, there are many things to do, as Ellen told us. You think about what you want to do, you plant it, you find the seeds, and then you prepare the ground, and then you get down on your knees and get your fingertips dirty and fingernails dirty, and you plant the seeds, and there are all kinds of things that must be done. But surely you know there is a point at which you no longer have control over what's happening. Surely you know that the miracle of life is quite another thing over which human beings simply witness. The amazing life processes work on their own energy. And we prepare for it, and we can nurture it, and we can feed it, and take care of it. But the workings of the Spirit of life itself are all capable and willing and ready to make daily miracles happen. And we watch in awe, and we watch amazed, and we are humbled. For all our human capacity, we still get down on our knees for the miraculous work of nature. And in our faithful participation and our willingness to give our work over to the greater powers than our own, we are grateful and give thanks even now. The great poet Chesterton says something about this process. You say grace before meals. All right. But I say grace before the play and before the opera and grace before the concert and grace before I open a book and grace before sketching or painting or swimming or walking or playing or dancing. And I say grace before I dip the pen into the ink. And I would add to that here at Live Oak, let us say grace even as we prepare our own soil and our own soul to be cultivated and to cultivate the garden. This garden is located in our own backyards, and it's also in our own souls, even in the soul of the beloved congregation. We will always remember that the essential element of this work is beyond us, and yet we continue on, hoping, praying, and believing that goodness will happen all around us and among us and beyond us. And this is our hope. This is our faith, that earth was given for our garden, and we participate with that magnificent growth from none other than the Spirit of life itself. And hear the benediction. This is from the Ute Indian tribe of North America. Earth, teach me stillness as grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me caring as parents who secure their young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands all alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain.